What's up guys, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Lore. In this episode I'm going to be featuring the Naboo N1 Starfighter. That the cultured people of Naboo, who were so devoted to peace and understanding, went on to develop such a capable starfighter as the N1 seemed a bit unusual to many. Upon closer study of this aesthetically beautiful and functional but deadly vehicle shows how much it was a product of its environment. Like much of Naboo engineering, the N1 was based on a number of standard elements of Old Republic technology, but they were adapted in a way that was quite unique to the Naboo. This was not simply due to their highly traditional outlook on life, which were dating back to the original planetary settlers, but was also derived from the Naboo's perceived lack of a need for advanced shielding, weapon systems and the like. This in turn was coupled with a keen sense of their environmental responsibility. Increased contact with the galaxy at large, along with an increase in pirate activity around a planet that relied heavily on trade with its neighbours, led to the need for, at the very least, a token fighter force. And this was despite the fact that Republic forces did the majority of the system's policing. The early Naboo fighters developed by the sole starship manufacturer on the planet, Theed Palace Space Vessel Engineering Corps, lacked even basic electromagnetic shielding, relying instead on a hand-finished, expensive and high-maintenance chromium finish to shield the craft's pilot and systems from dangerous radiation. A steady design evolution led to the Naboo police cruiser, which was then used later as a training craft for potential N1 pilots. And it was basically a patrol craft capable of operating only within the planet's environment. And that design was yet again modified, and thus the N1 was born. Now, it was originally intended mainly for ceremonial functions, and the Starfighter's role as an escort for the Royal Starship and visiting dignitaries meant that the N1 finally adopted much of the technology found in other Starfighters across the galaxy. With, of course, the Naboo stamping their own identity firmly on the N1, thus making it more of a Naboo unique ship. Now, unkind off-world commentators tended to refer to the final results of the N1 as a rat-tail design. Typically for Naboo engineers, this elegant feature was a vital component of the fighter. It contained a computer interface and power charging system. When resting in the hangar of the Royal Palace, the N1's central fin would be plugged into a charging socket, keeping the fighter fully operational and ready to scramble at a moment's notice. I said fin earlier, sorry, I meant central tail, the main one, on the main body. But while it was recharging, the fighter was connected to a central battle computer. Now, in a combat situation, coordinates and tactical information could then be downloaded into the Starfighter's main computer, vastly improving the scramble time. And the pilot could be quickly brought up to speed on the way about whatever action was required. Now, for interfacing with the fighter's computer and the provision of astrogation calculations, in-flight systems management, performance optimization and additional situation data, the hyperspace jump-capable N1 carried a single R2 astromech droid. Although it carried the latest in electromagnetic radiation shielding, the N1 was partly finished in the same reflective chromium as the Royal Starship. Unlike most other aspects of the look of the vehicle, this was purely an aesthetic decision, confirming the craft's royal connections. Now, when we move on to the specifications of the fighter itself, you can see that the primary sublight engines on the N1, while set in a vectored J-type or twin radial configuration for increased maneuverability, were heavily modified Nubian models, which were virtually unrecognizable from the original production version. Now, the alterations were intended to allow the engine to burn at far higher temperatures than the original specifications allowed, which thus increased the fuel efficiency and vastly reduced its polluting emissions. There was also a new coolant system which was added to the engines, and, true to the Naboo style, this vital component was integrated into the overall aesthetic. Now, the pointed tails emerging from the back of each engine, which balanced the look of the long main body tail, incorporated the heat sinks. The twin laser cannons on the nose of the fighter delivered a highly accurate above average rate of fire and were assisted by binocular targeting sensors mounted in the front of each engine, beneath the protective chromed nacelles. For added punch, twin magazines of 5 proton torpedoes apiece were mounted on the underside of the N1 in a detachable launcher assembly that allowed for faster reloading and more efficient maintenance back at the hangar. If the N1 had any specific weakness, it came from the placement of the engines, because while the J-type configuration did allow for greatly increased maneuvering and more sensitive handling, the ship was prone to spin drastically if either engine was even slightly damaged. Whatever the original intentions for the N1, and in spite of its flaws, the fighters and pilots of the Royal Naboo Security Force acquitted themselves admirably against the overwhelming forces of the Trade Federation during the occupation of Naboo. The N1 proved itself to be as effective in a ground support role as it was as an air and space superiority fighter. It also served well as an escort starfighter in later years, and was even seen on duty in the skies above Coruscant itself. And that is the Naboo N1 Starfighter. Whilst sleek and aesthetically pleasing to look at, I actually do like the look of this fighter. I reckon it actually looks pretty cool itself. But it was also a very capable starfighter in itself, and it is actually one of my favourite starfighters in the Star Wars universe. Now, if you like the video, be sure to leave a like, leave a comment or two, tell me your thoughts on the video as well if you like, subscribe to keep up to date with my videos, and I'll talk to you all in the next one, guys, and have a good one.